Good afternoon. I am Prakash Shankar and I've chosen the movie Unbroken. So these are the credits. It's basically based on a novel by Laura Hillenbrand, which came out in 2010. The movie came out in 2014. And a brief overview of the storyline is as follows. So there is this protagonist, Louis Zamperini. He's an Italian-American boy. He lives in Torrance, California, and he's an Olympic level runner. He has a very disturbed childhood, but with the help of his elder brother, Pete, he manages to get ahead in his life. So again, during a bombing mission against a Japanese-held island, he meets an accident and then on survives in an ocean on a raft for 47 days, along with his couple of friends. He is then captured by Japanese soldiers and held as a prisoner of war. And as the war finally ends, he is able to return to his homeland. So this is basically a brief overview and the storyline how the movie progresses. So the human rights issues that I have encountered, sir. Actually, I have made some notes. Can I read them from my copy, or is it not allowed?
No, no, no. You can read it down. No problem.
Okay, okay, sir. So the various human rights issues that I feel were obviously violated in this movie can be given as the first one is discrimination. So this human rights issue that was violated, discrimination basically is before he actually became a prisoner of war. So in the beginning of the movie, it is shown that during his younger years, he was bullied continuously by his fellow mates just because of the fact that he was born on Italian soil. He wasn't an American by birth. So he was continuously bullied by many people around him, and this led him to develop some bad habits like smoking, drinking. He used to do a lot of stealing in those times, but after all, he obviously got ahead in his life. The second one I think is torture. So from here on, all the human rights issues they are basically after he was captured by the Japanese soldiers. So the torture. Okay, so we see in this movie that the protagonist is not only physically but also mentally tortured a lot when he was captured by the Japanese soldiers. Uh, he was treated like animal and he was left on the pity of the commanding officer as shown in the movie. Every day he was beaten for smallest things ranging from not being able to work to something as simple as actually looking in directly in the eyes of the commanding officer. So there is this commanding officer, his name is Watanabe. So he actually, as soon as whenever the protagonist looks into his eyes, he's thrashed by bait and by sticks or by various other things. Then the next one is obviously slavery. So all the prisoners of war, along with him, that were captured, they are made to work very hard, and the work hours were quite impractical. They didn't had very enough resources, and at the prisoner of war camp, he experienced such brutality that it violated his human rights. So again, while in captivity at Ofuna, the Japanese prison camp, Louis' right to realization as a living person and his social security were taken away. And at the prisoner of war camps, the Red Cross and the other organizations require for every living prisoner of war to be registered as an official prisoner, so the families know whether their relatives are alive or not. The step is extremely important in protecting the prisoner's social security status, but the officers at the camp disregarded this rule and decided to keep the prisoners in hiding. So the Louis also records that there would be no Red Cross supervision, no improved treatment, no humanity. I wouldn't be registered as an official prisoner of war. This was the exact statement given by Louis Zamperini. And the next one is genocide. All right, so there is a very brief scene in this movie where the Americans actually attacked the Japanese base camp, right? So the people there actually start celebrating the prisoners of camps because they think that now the Americans will take over Japan and they'll be free. But then there's this another batchmate of Louis. He tells them that he has heard that if Japanese win, if Japanese lose and the Americans win, then the Japanese will issue a kill all order. And then there's this brief silence moment that so that actually tells that actually makes all of them confused at what they should pray for, whether Americans should win or they shouldn't. Because if they do win, there'll be a mass genocide. All the prisoners of war will be killed immediately. Then the next thing is obviously custodial death. There are again scenes in the movie where there is this guy who is very tired and he hasn't eaten anything for days, and he was allotted some work, but he wasn't able to do so. But and due to this, he died, and his corpse was there for like a lot of time, for a couple of days, and no one even bothered to move it away. So obviously, custodial deaths, I believe that was another human rights issue that was violated. And the last one is obviously impractical work hours. So the work hours, they were quite impractical. They weren't even allowed food or sleep or something as simple as being able to bath or bathe regularly. So they weren't allowed any of these things. So the relevant articles that were violated, the first is obviously Article 1, the right to equality, because in the initial part of the movie itself, it is shown that he was discriminated continuously. The second one is obviously Article 2, freedom from discrimination. Article 5, freedom from torture and degrading treatment. He was tortured and treated very badly at the camps, at the Japanese camps. Then Article 13, right to free movement in and out of the country. He wasn't allowed to move out of the base camps. Article 9, freedom from arbitrary arrest and exile. Article 20, right to peacefully assemble and association. There's this scene in this movie where all the people, all the prisoners were actually talking and having some fun, but then this commanding officer comes and beats all of them. So I believe that was another human right issue that was violated. Article 24, right to rest and leisure. They weren't given any rest at all. They were not allowed to have rest. Article 25, right to adequate living standards. So these are the various articles that were violated. The conclusion. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is war should be avoided at all costs, because when you see the movie, you will realize it's not, war doesn't ensure that one party will win, one party will lose. Whether someone wins or whether someone loses, it's a loss of both the sides, because there is this commanding officer, Watanabe, who tortures Louis Zamperini a lot. But as the movie ends, the movie shows the humane side of Watanabe as well, as he's not able to face Louis Zamperini when he goes back to Japan after some time. Humanitarian conditions should be given a top priority for prisoners of war, because at the end of the day, they are also human and they should be treated accordingly. Then a war hampers both the sides, irrespective of the fact who wins and who loses, as I told you earlier. Even though it seems that the Japanese did lose, but Americans lost a lot of lives as well. And every person has a greater light inside him or her. So there is this dialogue in this movie in the beginning itself. So Louis Zamperini is a child and he goes to a church, and there is this father who tells him that the dialogue is quite interesting. It says that God created two great lights, the greater light to rule over the day and the lesser light to rule over the night. But now these things, light or dark, day or night, are separated from each other. God created each in its place, and He did not create a battle between them. So a person should always live in the night and not battle with it. So this one dialogue actually had a great impact on the mind of Louis Zamperini, and that was we can obviously see that when he was in the ocean on a raft for 47 days, all his other friends, there were a couple of friends, they gave up, but he didn't, because of the fact that he believed that after night a day will come, and that is shown in at the end of the movie as well. Watanabe, although he was projected in a very bad light, but as the movie ended, it showed the human side of the commanding officer as well, and that's it's.
Thank you, Prakhar. Thank you, Prakhar, for your presentation. I guess so you have balanced your presentation properly.
So, namaskaram everyone. My name is Vishesh Bhatt, and today I have this opportunity to present a PPT on the movie Shikara, the untold story of Kashmiri Pandits. So, before I go into this, this is a disclaimer that the views expressed by me are my own personal views, and I do not intend to defame any religion, caste, tribe, state, or community. It is an honest effort to contribute to a learning lesson from the past towards a better future. Okay. So before we go into this, I have an index. So we will go from blast from the past, where we will talk about the historical event that have unfolded in the Kashmir. Then we will talk about the plot and the summary about the movie, and then the human right violation or genocide or both. What actually happened in Kashmir? We will go through the theoretical inputs that you have given to me in our recorded lectures, and the Gregory Stanton framework vis-a-vis Kashmir. Does the genocide actually happen in Kashmir or not? We will verify it with the Gregory Stanton net framework. And then the real saviors of Kashmir, who they are, what they do. And then to a brighter future, can the genocide which has happened or the human right violation that has happened in Kashmir, can it lead to a better future? And what are the lessons that we can learn from it? So this is the blast from the past. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. This is of paramount importance if we are to talk about what has happened in Kashmir and why Kashmir is today what it is. Kashmir contrary to its name, is not new to communal strife, ethnic cleansing, religious persecution, mass murders, subjugation of minority rights, subjugation of women rights, subjugation of anyone who proposes an idea which is in clash with the mainstream idea. The murderous military expedition of the foreigners, of the Indians, everyone. So the historical documentation of Kashmir talks about at least 13 times the ethnic cleansing and mass migration of Kashmir has happened in the last 2000 years of recorded history. And it has been perpetuated by the Afghans, by the Mughals, by the Sikhs, by the Dogras, by the Turks for at least 13 times. The last one being the 19th January of 1990, where the last remaining minorities of Kashmir, the Kashmiri Hindus, were driven out of their homes. So this is the plot and the summary of the movie, The Shikara. Shikara is actually the name that is given by, it's actually a story about two Kashmiri Hindu couple, Dr. Shiv and his wife. The movie starts from their college days where they get to know each other, and then they marry. And they got married in somewhere around the month of January. And just a few weeks after it, the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits start. So the important thing in this plot and summary is that in Kashmir, having a house is of paramount importance. Even if you are a daily wager, it doesn't matter what occupation, what caste, what religion you belong to. A Kashmiri will always have a very, very big house. And the Shikara is also the house of these two Kashmiri Pandit couple. And this Dr. Shiv is pursuing his PhD. And since the time of the Kashmiri Pandit exodus that has happened, he has been writing letters to the American President Bush, hoping someday that he will get a response from him. We'll get to the why America is into this a bit later. Then, as you can see, Shiv is called to Agra as the president is visiting India, and then they are living in their presidential suite. The flashback happens, how they meet each other. So this is the plot of the movie. We'll go ahead. So human rights. These are a set of. I will give you a theoretical definition of what human rights are, what are human rights violations, and then we talk about the genocide, and then we'll see how these things were perpetuated on, whether they were perpetuated on the Kashmiri Pandit population or not. So the human right is a set of basic rights. It's a set of minimum rights that are guaranteed to every people, regardless of whether they are the citizen of their country, whether they are international tourists, or whether they are asylum seekers. These are the set of rights that are given to every people, regardless of who they are and where they live. The primary goal of every human right is to ensure the human dignity is maintained. This is the primary goal of the human rights. We do not have a specific set of what a human right means, what a human right violation is, because the UNHRC it still doesn't have, I think they still do not have a very fixed definition of what is what. It is still debatable. They are still working on it, and it's a work in progress. And then the human right violation. A human right violation happens when these rights are not upheld. When the government directly or indirectly, or if it fails to provide these basic sets of rights to their minority group. Then the new classifications are, as you have told, these are security rights, due process right, liberty rights. We will see how these rights were infringed as the exodus of the Kashmiris happened. Political right, the right to participate in the assembly, in protesting, in voting, serving in public offices, equality rights to everyone, social rights require the government ensures availability of work, education, and health services, and how these rights were denied to the minorities of Kashmir. The minority and group rights to protect a woman, racial, ethnic minorities, indigenous people, children, migrant workers, and the disabled, and how the events that unfolded actually inhibited these things to happen and exist. And then the definition of genocide, it's a Greek word, genos, and a Latin word, cide, which means race killing. In layman language, you can also rate it as when people are, homicide means when a human is killed, when a single human is killed, and genocide when a general, when you kill a human on a general scale. This is what genocide means. It's a deliberate and a systematic destruction of people or a group of people because of the ethnicity, nationality, religion, or race, or whatever identity they belong to. It has a principle of social exclusion, mass murders, purification, cleansing, institutionalization, disappearances of the minorities. And then the Antonio Cassius, he defined genocide as a war of conquest, use of religion, colonial domination, as we have seen the historical events that have unfolded in the Kashmir, and how, you know, the murderous military expedition that happened even before in the BCs and the 80s, and how the foreign invasions came, the way they brutalized the Kashmiriyat and the people living there. They imposed their own ideas, their own way of living upon a group of people that were inherently secular, that have always welcomed refugees from across the Central Asia and even from India as well. So this is Luke Cooper, who stresses that political affiliations are as important and often as permanent as ethnic, cultural, religious ones. That ki agar koi political, if a group of people have a political inclination, and still if you go on to kill them, it can also be rated as a genocide. As we can see, it's happening in many states of India still now. And the Peter Draw suggested that the definition be amended to deliberate destruction of physical life of any individual. This is a very basic and a very broad meaning, a broad definition of human right, of genocide. In the Gregory Stanton framework, which I think is one of the best works that have been done to help people understand what genocide is, how
2 minutes more, Rishish.
How it can be prevented, and what are the stages through which it happens. Classification, symbolization, discrimination. It happens like this. I'll just read through the events that happened in the movie. At the 40th minute, it says hit list. लोग मौत आपको जाना पड़ेगा इंडिया. 34th minute, क्या क्या तेरे इंडिया ने दिया हमको. प्रॉपर्टी बेच दे, जिंदगी भर की कमाई लगाई है तूने. 43:57 shows the burning of Ranawari. 45th minute shows frantic calls being made to police station where were made. Pandit houses were being burnt. No response from the police station. 49 minutes shows गांव में सब खत्म हो गया है. 50th minute Benazir Bhutto is seen giving a polarizing speech. जगमोहन के जग जग मोमो हन हन कर देंगे. At the 54th minute, Naveen Bhai is killed in public by terrorists. 38th minute, men asking Kashmiri women to cover their head and telling her to take off her bindi, which is a sign of a married woman in Hinduism. And it also shows the killing of almost all Kashmiri Pandit figures being killed, from the head of Doordarshan to Tipalal Taklu, who was the Bharatiya Janata Party's head of the Kashmir. And at the 1 hour and 4 minute in a refugee center, it can be seen the government official is said to be saying to a Kashmiri couple, Kashmir se to bhagkar aage, yahan dikha rahe hain humko. So now the real saviors. If Kashmir is still alive today, it's because of the Indian Army. It's not because of the secular nation, the secular state of our nation. Kitne Ghazi aaye, kitne gaye, KGS Jilin, exit 15 cops Srinagar after the Pulwama attack. Kashmirism is, if it's still alive, the credit only and only goes to our armed forces, to no one else, to not the education, to not the economic prosperity, nothing else. To a brighter future, how can genocide be prevented? I think the most important thing about how it can be prevented, if we can work upon creating an identity which is inclusive and which is secular in nature, where we do not enforce our views upon the views of a minority or a majority for that sake. We have to hold the state government and the central government leaders accountable. The instance of a Kashmiri Pandit writing to the letters to American president was because this was the first Arab Spring that sprung up, and the talks were going about the Afghanistan had fell to Taliban. The same thing was happening in Iraq.
It's time, Rishish.
ठीक है सर, बताइए। थैंक यू।
No, thank you for the presentation. In fact, the presentation was amazing, and I guess so many of us must have enjoyed it.